Is it,
Yes. Oh,
last
fun.
year you were, is Michelle with you this year too?
No, I don't know who
No.
the other judges are.
Oh, okay. And they get to judge the talent up on
Yeah,
stage
it's
for
really
the.
fun. It was a super good time last year as the first year, and it was so successful. They're doing it again this year with even more talent. So
And as the city of Northport is growing in the area around us, there's a lot of talent here, and a lot of people retire from the entertainment industry too, or don't get that platform to actually utilize their talent because they have to make a living some way. And around here, I don't know if that's a real easy way to make a living. I know it's not the easiest way to make a living any place that you are in the country. Now, Dee Dee, anything else? Tell me about your summer children's program.
well, we have very little spots left. All the teen camp is filled. The children's 6 to 12 camp will has 2 weeks of the 8 filled also. So, if you're interested in sending your child to a summer art camp, please do it as soon as possible. There's not a lot of spaces left. We start on June 5th, and we have 8 weeks, and we are closed the week of 4th of July, so I think it's over August 4th. And each week is filled with all kind of activities. Every week is different. um, it is education and art mixed together in a really fun way. Claire Harvey, who is our youth director, has the most incredible program, and they do work very hard to make it entertaining and thought provoking, creative, and children come out learning way more about art and art history than probably most parents do. It's a wonderful program.
And
So
there's instructors. Tell me a little bit about Barry and Claire and
oh,
JJ.
yes, JJ's the assistant youth director, and then there's a number of other instructors that are, most of them are teachers that are off for the summer, and they take an interest in helping out with this program. And then Barry Thorne, which is Claire's husband, he does the teen camp, and he does 4 weeks of teen camp. But like I said, it's filled now, and it's a really a great way for teens to build their self confidence and to explore different possibilities. The teen camp and the children's camp are a little different. The teen camp isn't as structured, it's more or less finding what they enjoy as an art experience and then growing in that aspect.
And if you ever want to get the information on this, you can actually, if you have any questions during our show, we are live on social media. So go ahead and just type in a comment and your question under that, or anything that you want to say, and we can bring it up on screen and we see it live. So we will get to answer any of your questions that you may have out there. Now, before you go on about that, because I want to talk about the radio station. We're a nonprofit 501c3. We're run by all volunteers, and we do need funds. The hurricane really hit us with us being a nonprofit. We're needing to help keep the lights on and that. So if you go to kdwradio.com and click on the donate button there, you can go on the site. We have a PayPal and a donate. Also, you can, if you're on Facebook right now, we have our donate button up there. Go ahead and click. Any dollar. Any dollar would be so very much appreciated. And one of the ways that we try to raise money at the radio station is we have different events at Common Grounds. And this Saturday night, which is Mother's Day, well, Sunday's Mother's Day, but the night before Mom Day Eve, we have a comedy show. It's What a Mom To. And what they have, I got to put glasses on here, people. I'm sorry. I'm at that age. Lynn Lane, Miss Ruth, CP Pose, Comedy and Magic with Star Newman, who was on Penn and Teller, Wendy Sienna, and Kathy McSteen. All of them are women that they're going to be performing for your pleasure. And one of the things that I'd like to remind people is Common Grounds is a BYOB place. You can bring your own bottle there, and you can sit there, and it's a listening room. It's set up stadium style type, and you just sit there and you listen, and it's a captive audience like you're going to theater. So anything else, Dee Dee, before we bring on our guests, because I know we've been already talking for
Oh, I
a
just
bit.
thought that we could bring up our sponsor. We are
Oh,
sponsored by NAMAC Portfolio Investment Professionals, LLC, and her website is www.namac.com, and her phone number 941-429-2911. Her email is wendy@namac.com. And thank you, Wendy, for always supporting the Art Center and WKDW radio station.
yeah, thank you so much, Wendy. And Wendy, you do so much for the community. You need to get acknowledged for what you do. So thank you very much. Well, Dee Dee,
Yes.
we have a special guest with us today.
I'm because I've read a little bit about her before the show. I didn't know her, but it's very inspiring what I've read already. So I'm really anxious to hear her story.
Well, as we get ready to introduce Dawn Dimicco, Dimicco. I'm sorry, Dawn. I've been running late today to let everybody know, and I'm kind of out of it. I have to get my devices. That's why I'm even stumbling over my words right now, because it's just crazy, right, Dee Dee?
I know
You guys were in the stream room waiting for me, and I forgot that it was at 10:30, not 11:30, that we're doing this today. Just for the audience, I can edit any of this stuff out, which I will when it airs on the radio tomorrow. When we're live right now on social media, you get the full version. I edit on my end. I take out me. I don't take out my guests. I take out me, because I have a habit of rambling on. And actually, Dawn utilizes her experience as a dual sports collegiate athlete, military spouse, and successful business owner. Dawn has created the BRAVE Way methodology for developing the courage you need to live the life you were created for. She has a master's in social work, is a mental performance coach, the owner of Epic Redemption Coaching LLC, co-creator of the Clear Planner, and author of the workbook, Winning the Mental Toughness Game in Business and Life. With her championship mindset, calculated game plan, and unique approach, Dawn combines exceptional guidance and contagious enthusiasm to deliver you the win. And her new book out is called Courage Rising, Stop Settling and Start Living a Brave Life with No Regrets. So I'd like to welcome to our stage here, Dawn. Hi, Dawn. And I'm going to let you do most of the talking, because I'm just stumbling here.
That's fine. It's awesome to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity to hang out with you ladies.
Oh, and it's such a great privilege. Now, Dawn, our audience does not know anything about you. Okay. And Dee Dee and I don't know that much ourselves, except with what we've been researching a little. So why don't we start from the very beginning of where were you born?
I was born in I was born in New York. I lived in upstate New York for many years, but I was born in Mount Kisco, New York.
And where did you graduate from high school?
John Jay Katona Lewisboro.
And where was that?
That was also in New York.
Okay. And then you went to college and you have a master's degree. Tell us a little bit about your life.
Okay. So I'm going to go with college, because that's where we started.
Okay.
And you mentioned I was a dual sport collegiate athlete. So my entire life, I spent really competing, doing anything that I could athletically. My sister and I were both athletes in our town. We played 3 different sports in high school. And really, like, my goal all throughout was to get a college scholarship and play ball beyond high school. I had the opportunity to go to the university at Albany, which is also in New York, and which notice I'm far from New York now. I don't really appreciate cold or snow, but I was able to play both basketball and lacrosse in college. Had just an incredible experience, incredible life there. Lived there for a couple years before moving farther upstate in New York with more snow and more cold, and then continued on. But while I was at the University at Albany, I played both basketball and lacrosse, and I got my undergraduate degrees. I dual majored in social welfare and psychology, and then went on and got my master's in social work.
And then what did you do after college?
A lot of things. After I graduated, I actually worked for a couple years as a social worker. So I was working in a geriatric, subacute, and acute rehab facility. So basically, when older individuals had surgeries or suffered ailments and couldn't go right home, they needed some rehab before home. It was a facility where we had both sides. We had a nursing home level care for somebody that needed a slower rehab a little bit longer before they could hopefully get home, or the hospital level care. And so as my job there as a social worker was to really serve as the discharge planner. So I kind of coordinated the interdisciplinary team. My job was to translate all the doctor and the therapy speak into English for the patient, for the family, and then help come up with the plan to get them home and get them home safely. It was just a really incredible opportunity. I got to work with amazing doctors, nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. I got to work with insurance companies, home health care agencies, in a way to just coordinate an effort to get people to the safest place where they can, thrive in the best environment possible. Wasn't always super happy, because a lot of the patients that would come to the facility, the goal was always to get home, but that isn't always the outcome. So I also had to help families go through the process of long-term nursing home placements or longer-term healthcare, helping families move from, where they had lived their entire life. So there was a lot of really fun, awesome success experiences, and then, opportunities to help families go through this. I mean, really, it's a grieving process whenever you have to leave the home that you've known and loved. One of the things that I learned the most there, when I was married, I always said, my ex, before we got married, he's like, promise me you'll never put me in a nursing home. And I was like, nope, I will never, ever make that promise, because I saw so many families that made that promise to loved ones. And it's not a promise that we can always keep. It's not always in the best interest of the individual or the family. And you're dealing with enough guilt. I was like, nope, I will never make that promise ever, because sometimes it's necessary.
And I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because that is something that we went through it with our family. With my mother, she caught COVID in the beginning, where they didn't have the vaccine, and it ruined the quality of life for her. Mm-hmm. And we had to. They were using a lift to get her out of her bed and onto the toilet, and none of us were capable of really managing that, although she was in the nursing home where my niece was RN. So it actually ended up working out well. But when you're talking about that, that is something that a lot of families don't realize until you start getting where your parents or people within the family are aging, or they have a medical condition that you have to really, really think about that. So I'm so glad that you talked about that, because even with myself right now, one of the things is I've been ill for the last year and a half, trying to recover from a few different things. And I'm looking at what will we do? My husband just went through hip replacement, but he was bedridden for two months before he could have the surgery. So, those things, and you don't have to be old to have that happen. You do all those different things. So thank you for mentioning that.
Well, it was a really incredible experience, because I was, a young punk kid, fresh out of being, a college athlete, not really thinking about, much farther in the world, right? Like, I was at the time 23 years old, And I didn't really think about what my life was going to look like, 20, 30, 40 years from then. And it made me start to think about, the way I was living my life in those moments, but it also got me starting to think and really share with, older members of my family, grandparents. It's like, look, you can't live in this house long term. It's too much. The only shower is on the second floor. You're not going to be able to get up and down. And so it really shaped a lot of the way I was thinking, and then shaped the way I eventually started taking care of myself. As an athlete, I worked out. I trained really hard with the idea of competing to win games. And as I got older, initially out of college, I did not take care of myself. I went through a lot of struggle with some depression, anxiety, stress, coping poorly. I put on a lot of weight. And what I learned, it impacted my knee that I had had surgery in college. I eventually ended up a couple years ago with a total knee replacement. But what I learned was I had to take care of my body again. I had to train again, not to win some game, not to win some championship, but I had to start training and taking care of myself and my health to win at life in order to do anything I needed to do. If I hadn't been able to kind of drop the weight, take care of my health, be really mindful about what I was doing, I would have needed a knee replacement much sooner. My rehab process would have been much more difficult. And it was one of the things I was able to see and draw from through my experiences in the nursing home level care, in the hospital level care. Patients that came in that were healthy to begin with, the recovery process was much quicker and much easier and more likely chance of getting home. And so that, really young, started kind of sending me on the path that eventually I went on, which I didn't realize at the time it was setting me up for the kinds of things that I do now in my life.
And we'll jump into that now, because you're a speaker. You're very good at it. Author.
I talk a lot.
Yeah, so do I, but not as well. And I go to Toastmasters, so I don't know. And you're a coach. Mm-hmm. Now, let's divide these down. Let's break them down.
Let's break it up.
Let's break it up. What came first?
Oh, the chicken or the egg?
Yes. So, the coaching, the author, the speaker, what came? What was your process?
Definitely the coaching. So when I mentioned I struggled when I graduated from college. I went through a really terrible transition, going through the who am I, what am I supposed to be doing? Everything that I knew from the time I was 5 until I was 22 was being an athlete, right? Competing. Everything I did and everything I didn't do was around some sort of competitive sport. And all of a sudden I didn't have that anymore. And that's when I went into a bit of anxiety, a bit of depression. My fantastic coping mechanisms as a social worker was to eat too much and drink too much. Makes sense, right? So I wasn't taking care of myself with healthy coping strategies. I put on over 40 pounds in less than a year and a half, which then creates all these other issues, right? So I became more depressed, more anxious, less energy, no drive, didn't want to do anything. I eventually met the man that I married, and I started to take care of myself, but really at the time it was only because I didn't want to have really bad wedding pictures. So my whole intent and goal was I wanted to look good at my wedding because those pictures are forever, right? And so I did start to take care of myself. I lost some weight. We got married. He was in the military at the time. So we got married, moved, and because I really only cared about a wedding dress, once you're done wearing the wedding dress, the weight came back on, the unhealthy habits came back on. And eventually, over time, I'd had enough. I hit my breaking point. My weight had fluctuated a little bit over the course of several moves with the military. And I'll never forget my breaking point. Everybody has to have that low. My breaking point was we were living in South Carolina. And we had a king size bed. We had a couple dogs. So you need, a lot of space, right? And I was making my bed. I was probably about 27, 28 at the time. And I got winded making a king size bed at 27. I was a dual sport athlete. I was an All-American. I was a Hall of Famer. And I got tired making my bed at 27. And that was where I remember just sitting on the ground, sobbing, face in my hands. really angry with myself, embarrassed, ashamed, didn't really know what to do. And at that point, I actually started doing those online video program things, right? Like I started following that Beachbody, now called Body, because of the knee injuries that I had and that I suffered. I couldn't work out the way that I used to, right? In college, you just run and you jump and you do hard, crazy things. Well, my body at that point wasn't able to do that. You know, I had this knee that I probably shouldn't have been able to walk as well as I did. And so I started taking care of my nutrition because I knew in order to lose weight, I finally had to learn how to eat. In college, I ate like a moron. I mean, I ate terrible things, and that's why the weight came on so quickly after college. When you're not working out and you continue to eat that way, it didn't serve me. And then, of course, as we age, that all changes anyway. And so I started to finally take care of myself. And through that process of working out, through that process of taking care of my body in new ways, I started to love myself again in new ways. I joined that Beachbody system. They have a business side of it, a multi-level marketing component. And so I joined as a coach. I didn't ever intend to sell anybody anything, coach anybody through anything, but I figured in my brain, if I was a coach, it was now my job to work out. And I had to make it my job to take care of myself or I wasn't going to do it. I fell in love with the process. And then over several years, I continued to help other women the way I was helped. And when I moved to Florida a couple years ago, I wanted to do some in-person. So I went and got my personal training certification, did some group fitness, and then really moved into coaching. You know, not just in Beachbody, you're selling a product and you're kind of talking people through it. It was, a coach was just kind of the name that we went by at the time. But when I started training, I was working at the Y. I had a great time. I met incredible people. I learned a lot. Then I had my knee replaced, COVID hit, and I was away from the gym for so long. After COVID, I went through a divorce, and then all of a sudden was in that situation where, I probably should make some money, right? I didn't have to earn on my own. I didn't have to support myself. And so suddenly I was faced with that in between where you ask for a divorce and then the divorce happens, but you don't really 100% know what the finances are going to look like. So you better get your butt in gear. And I had a really good friend at the time who she took her training business online and she was doing virtual coaching, training, fitness, nutrition. She connected me to the coach that she had hired to teach her how to do that. And that's when I started really coaching. That's when I considered myself a coach. So I was working with women, not too long after COVID and really working through that process and fell in love with it. I loved the one-on-one opportunity that I had with people that weren't just local to me, right? I had one of my first clients was out in Alaska. So it was just a really cool opportunity to do that. And then just have continued to find different ways to coach in different spaces. While I still do some fitness and nutrition coaching, that opportunity to go online completely changed and transformed my life. And so now I want to work with coaches that are in the situation, trainers and nutrition coaches that are where I was, that maybe they don't necessarily want to work with the gym or they want to find a better way, a different way. I'm now working on the business end, teaching those coaches the stuff that I learned from my coach, the stuff that I learned through my trial and error. And then now working with them on the business side of things. That was a very long roundabout answer for you.
Well, that's the question. If you're just tuning in right now, you're listening to Marie LaBrosse and DeeDee Gozion on WKDW 97.5 FM Rural Community Radio. We're coming out of Northport, Florida. And our guest today is Dawn Dimicco, right?
Yep, you got it.
Okay. Speaker, author, coach, and one of the reasons we're having her on is, and if you've ever listened to our show, you find out most anything you want to know about the person that's our guest, because we give them the opportunity to tell their life stories through their own words. And one of the things I do want to say to our audience, we try very carefully to let the guest tell their story. everybody has a story. Our listeners all have a story. We want to share your story with the world and with your family. A lot of times we've had guests on and their family never knew things about the person that we are able to get the person to tell about themselves. So thank you, audience, for listening, and thank you for our guest to tell her story. Now, we're Dee Dee,
Yeah.
are you ready to ask any questions here?
Well, actually, I'm curious. You said you wanted to move in the warm weather. Are you here in Florida, Dawn?
I am in Florida. I'm out in Wesley Chapel. I actually
Oh, okay.
I connected with the two of you through my girlfriend who is out in Northport.
Oh, wonderful. I heard you had mentioned earlier about Coco Yoga Cafe, and we just had an event there on Saturday.
I
There.
have not had a chance to go yet, but I've heard nothing but good things from my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you what, it's a wonderful place. Whitney just got her liquor license, so she has some
Oh,
like neutrals and some beverages, and she has breakfast, lunch, and dinner now. And we had an art exhibition for Richard Crevlin on Saturday there, and she had music. It was beautiful. It was a great time. So
awesome.
yeah, you have to let us know when you're in town. We'd love to meet you in person.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely. No, the next thing, did you become the speaker or the author? How did the author come out?
So I love that you mentioned Toastmasters. That's something that I have been involved with for so many years. I first joined when I was living in South Carolina, and I've been members of clubs in South Carolina, Kansas, and Florida. And what I love about Toastmasters, it's an international organization. I mentioned that when I was married, my ex was in the military, so I moved a lot. And within the military world, there are certain organizations that every time I went somewhere, I plugged in. I was very involved in some of the ladies' chapel programs. So everywhere I went, I would plug into the Bible study. It was a community that was there. Well, when you're out of the military and you move, you got to find new communities. And it was so cool to know that when I got to Florida, there was going to be a Toastmaster group somewhere. I just happened to connect with one of the best out in Plant City is the club I belong to. Such an awesome time. So I've been speaking. I was speaking when I first got married. I did a lot of briefing, teaching, training in the military world. So I worked in family programs, but I briefed soldiers that were getting ready to deploy as they were coming back. I did briefings for family members. We talked all about kind of that preparedness, but also communication, but like anything that went through a deployment process. I coordinated to bring in subject matter experts for the various pieces and then taught a lot of it. Had an opportunity to brief and work with a lot of the generals at the first installation we were at, as well as getting to really spend a lot of time with some of the visiting dignitaries that came through just to brief about the kinds of things that we were doing up at Fort Drum in New York. And so just some really cool opportunities. So I've always been speaking when I don't know if you have kids, if you have those like baby books where you kind of write all the, I guess those, what are the words?
Moments,
special
your
moments.
steps,
I was going to
yeah.
say the special moments, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Monumental things that are going on. Well, when I was young and I had braces, I was also seeing a therapist for swallowing. I don't know. It was a weird situation. I think my orthodontist and his sister-in-law were in like cahoots. And so I had like a swallowing therapist or something. But when I first went there, they asked, when did Dawn start talking? And my mom's like, well, I have to go look, right? She didn't just know that off the top of her head at that point in time. So she went home and she comes back, she said 4 months. And the woman's like, well, no, that doesn't sound right. She's like, no, and my mom is, everything is in order. Like she knows when it happened. She writes it down. Like she is the most organized individual I will ever know. And she's like, nope, she started at 4 months, has not stopped. So I've been speaking, I guess, my whole life.
Wow.
Oh,
Commanding attention of some kind. But really, so the next piece after coaching really was I would say becoming an author. That is all part of my dream to ultimately be speaking on stages in front of people to get a message across. And one of the things that I love about the book is it's an opportunity to be on a show like this and talk to more people to figure out what is that message, because I have so many darn burning messages inside of me. The book was actually born out of a Toastmaster speech that I had given. I don't always prepare for my speeches ahead of time. It's usually on my way there. It's very well known in our circle. And the one speech, I knew that I had to give a speech the next day. It was super late. Wasn't sure exactly what it was I was going to talk about. But before I went to bed that night, I wrote 3 bullet points on a piece of paper. And I decided I wanted to talk about how do you build confidence, right? Because, 5 to 7 minute speech, that's an adequate amount of time to talk about developing confidence. And what I ended up doing was I came up with that because in one of the evaluations I provided to a newer member a couple weeks earlier, I talked about how what was going to separate her speech was her delivering it with more confidence. And so I just couldn't get that thought out of my head. How do you teach somebody to be more confident? How do you do that in a way that makes sense? And so I gave this speech. It went really well. And our particular Toastmaster organization, we have our regular evaluators, but then the rest of the members have a chance to pass. We pass notes like we're in high school or middle school, right? And so,
Did I lose you guys?
Uh-oh.
Did she freeze?
That's
She
okay.
froze. Yeah, she froze. We're
Did I
not
freeze?
frozen, but Dawn,
Am I-
you're yeah, it's on your end. You're freezing. Me and Dee Dee can.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
No, you're okay. You're okay now. You're back.
Oh.
We can see you, but you froze up there.
Uh-oh, I'm sorry. Dee Dee, was I frozen to you?
Not to me. It
Oh,
seemed
okay.
like it wasn't ever frozen to me.
Okay. Well, so what was cool was other members would pass notes, and I had a couple in the group that specifically said, this was my favorite speech you've ever given. And I was like, really? Then I had somebody else say, this needs to be a half-day workshop. Then I had somebody else, say, you need to develop this. This is going to be your book. And I looked at that guy who said, this is going to be your book. He's, one of my mentors. He's also my financial advisor. And I looked at him and I said, book. He said, yep, that's your book that you're going to write. I'm like, I'm not writing a book. I don't write. That's not what I do. I have no desire to write a book. Well, once somebody plants that idea in your head, somebody that you really value and trust, it kind of puts that seed in there. And so I started thinking about it. I was like, I should write a book. And I spent about a week thinking about it and said, no, I am not writing a book. That is ridiculous. And I went through all of that self-doubt. I can't do that. I'm not creative. Who am I to write a book? I don't have enough to value, right? So we devalue ourselves immediately. And then I put that idea aside. Then about 2-3 years later, I do a lot of personal development reading, and I was reading and I was like, I really do want to speak. I want to pursue a career in speaking. What do I need to do in order to do that? And so I joined the National Association Speakers Academy out here in the Tampa area. And basically the academy, they're not teaching you how to speak. They're teaching you the business of speaking. And so I went there and I was like, I've got a message to share. I just don't know what the message is. But in the meantime, teach me all the things I need to know in order to be a speaker. While I was in that Speakers Academy, I was coming home from a friend's wedding. And it was like audible. I was in the car by myself. There was no other human in the car with me, no dogs, nothing. And I heard very loud and clear, your lack of confidence is selfish, like out loud. And I was like looking around, like the radio wasn't on, like it was silence. And I looked around and it shook me to my core, not because I'm hearing voices, but because that statement was so true. Once it was said out loud, I was like, wow, my lack of confidence is completely selfish. There are things that I haven't pursued because I lacked the confidence to do it. There were conversations I didn't have because I didn't have the courage to have the difficult conversations. And it drove me nuts. And then, of course, during this long car drive, I started thinking about it and said, okay, when in my life was I the happiest? When in my life was I the most fulfilled? When in my life was I the most successful? When in my life did I feel like I was doing what I was supposed to do? And it was when I was the most confident. So I went back and I said, that's my message. I need, at least right now, that's the message that I'm supposed to be getting out. And how do I do that? I started deconstructing it. I started studying it. And so that was the message that I was going to be putting out to the world. That was going to be the keynote that I was going to start to prepare, and it wouldn't come out of me. I could not, for the life of me, write a presentation that I felt comfortable giving. We had a bunch of other speakers come to the Speaker Academy, and they all talked about, well, not all, but many of them talked about the value of having a book, right? So when you have a book, it builds credibility. It's something that gives you something that you can teach from and off of. It's another income stream. And so they talked about all these benefits of a book. And I said, you know what? Maybe I'm not ready to write a keynote. I should start to put this into a book. Nothing. Couldn't get any of it out of me to save my life. So then I hired a different coach and said, you know what? I think I'm going down the wrong direction. I need some clarity. Can you help me? Can you help me figure this stuff out? And so when I was working with her, we started talking about something that I am very good at. The reason that my clients get good results, it's not because I am this magic trainer I have a good program. I'm a good trainer, but I'm not the best trainer. I don't have the best program. But the difference is I get my clients to be consistent and disciplined enough to do what they need to do long enough to get the results that they need. And so we were deconstructing that. And so I started to create a program on developing consistency, developing discipline, developing a mindset that gets you success in life. And so as we were developing this, I was getting ready to launch this big program. And as the program's about to launch, after 6 months of all this work, I said, stop. Like, my body physically told me I needed to stop because it's not where my heart was and it didn't feel right. And so that coach happened to be away for 2 weeks and I didn't have access to her. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a step back. I'm not going to push this program on social media. I'm not going to try to sell it. I'm not going to try to coach it. I'm just going to spend some time reflecting. And then I got this stirring that I was supposed to write this book. I called my ex-girlfriend at the time, who I'm friends with, and told her the whole story. She knew all of the stuff I had gone through with the program I was in. And she said, so write the book. Just write the book. And I was like, yeah, but I already tried that. It didn't work. And as I'm talking myself out of it, at the same time, I'm telling her all the pieces that suddenly connected that wouldn't connect the first time. And she laughed at me. And I'm like, well, that's not very nice. And she said, you were always supposed to write this book. You just weren't ready when you were trying to write it. I was trying to write a book without having some of the successes that I needed to experience, without having some of the failures I needed to experience. And ladies, to top it all off, I was trying to write a book a year ago while I was still in the closet. How do you write a book on confidence when you're closeted? When you're not living in alignment with yourself? Like, that was the biggest, one of the most important chapters in the book. And what tied everything together was finally living and being in alignment with who I am to my core in everything I do. And so, my ex laughed at me and was like, you were always supposed to write the book. Just go write the book. I literally wrote the book in 2 weeks, the actual writing of it. Now, I say that and it sounds super impressive, but the book had been in my heart and in my mind for over a year. It was something that I just couldn't get worked out. And so that's when the author piece came out. It's a personal development book. It really talks, it's super basic. It's very simple and easy to understand. It's really that personal development book for people that don't like to do personal development and don't even know that they need it. And then they read it and they're like, oh, I needed that. Coaching was born out of my need to take care of myself. This book was born out of my need to take care of myself. And it's the lessons and things that I learned through taking care of myself. Oh, look at that sweet graphic. It's a very nice looking book right there.
Yeah, Courage Rising. So tell us about how you came up with the title.
I went through one of those like online quiz things that tells you what your purpose in life is, right? Because that's how we find out our purpose. We take a quiz online, always. It wasn't a Facebook quiz, so I guess maybe it's not official if it's not on Facebook. But I went through and I went through this training and I took this quiz, and at the end of it, it said that it gives you a 2-word life purpose. I was like, my life purpose is going to be boiled down to 2 words. And at the time, my life purpose was to instill courage. And it was so ironic that that's what came out as my life purpose. Yet at the same time, I could not figure out what my message was supposed to be and how I was supposed to do that. And so this book was one step in doing that. This book was me showing up and doing the hard things. And that's how I've really tried to live my life. And now, being as authentic and real, living with integrity, doing those things, but doing them out loud so that people can start to see the things that are possible. There's a proverb, right? Where there's no vision, the people perish, right? And for me, I lived so many years of my life where I wasn't living. I didn't look forward. It wasn't that I needed to have these big, crazy business goals or these big, crazy life goals, but I needed to have something that I was striving for, something that I was moving forward to. When I was no longer a competitive athlete, I lost that. When I was married, I started to live my life for the military, for supporting my ex, for supporting the unit, for doing everything else for everybody but myself. And while nobody said you can't have your own dreams and your own desires and strive for the things you want in life, I just stopped doing it. And I realized over this, several years of my life, I wasn't fully living. And when you're not living, you're dying. And so this book was that opportunity for me to talk about, okay, what are the things that you can do? People aren't born confident or born not confident. It's something that you can develop over time. And so in the book, I talk about, of course, the first piece of the book is talking about our limiting beliefs and those beliefs that we have about ourselves, and how do we pick them apart and attack them and change them so that we can use our mindset to our advantage. And then the second part of the book, I spend time going through what I call the BRAVE Way. And that's an acronym for how you can start to do things that allow you to be a little bit more courageous. Because people think that in order to do courageous things, you have to be confident. It's the opposite. You need to be confident, or you need to do things in order to solidify your confidence. So the trick is, how do you get yourself to do scary stuff? How do you get yourself to do stuff you don't want to do every day? And so that's what the BRAVE Way kind of talks you through, some steps and some things that you can do, some concrete ways that you can build yourself up, build up your environment, build up the people around you, so you can start doing the courageous things in order to become more confident in your day-to-day life.
Okay, I'm going to take us on the side here so the audience can see that's listening. You have a phoenix there. When I looked at it, I said, "Oh, Harry Potter, Dumbledore's phoenix. That's awesome." When I saw that, I do want to do some shout outs here. Mm-hmm. Michael White, thank you for watching us and loving us. And Lisa Russell, Jesus Mandragan, I'm sorry. The radio station, I don't know who's doing that, but Linda Shell. Thank you guys. We can see if you hit the likes or the loves or the other things that you can. And then we'd like to actually recognize April. She
yes.
Whose wedding was at yours that she was wondering about, that you were talking about?
That, and you can see her little face popped up with her beautiful husband. It was actually her wedding that I was on my way home from when this revelation all suddenly came to me.
Oh, isn't that cute? And April, so nice of you to be watching this. And I'm sure you're watching on Dawn's own personal, I don't know, she's probably on Facebook, not LinkedIn. Because this is being streamed to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So just so people to know. And then Justin, hello. I love these amazing women. They're a true example of community leaders. He's talking about us, Don.
I know. That was on before you introduced me.
I know. I did see that, and I just wanted to wait for the perfect time. Now, giving people the encouragement to actually start living in, let's see, again, my glasses are not on.
Living a brave life with no regrets.
Right, exactly. And that is the title. And Dee Dee.
Yes.
Do you have regrets?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's why this is all touching me, because I am not a confident person, as we all know.
Well, yeah, and Don may not know that, but Dee Dee, you are correct. Dee Dee doesn't have the confidence. She's one of those people. I don't know. And as we're talking here, as long as we're with a coach, I've always had more confidence than I probably should have in life.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I'll get in people's faces if I more so than others. But Dawn, your story is so compelling and touches so many people. And you know what? It's the truth. It's people that don't self-reflect and see what's happening within their own lives, because especially us that are mothers out there and wives and husbands or whoever, you take care of everybody else and you don't take care of yourself. You're the last person on the list. And the thing is, and I know sometimes it sounds selfish to other people that you take care of yourself.
But you have
And I should have done that. Well, those are the regrets that I have. I do have the regret that I didn't take care of myself. When you reflected on the things that you needed to do to change the physicality of what was going on within your body, I think if I would have had I don't know if I'm disciplined enough, Dawn. Is that something that you work on with people so you
absolutely.
can become?
That's actually the chapter that I just finished in the next book.
Oh, okay.
Is talking about discipline, and the next book is more comprehensive on mindset, right? So Courage Rising, it's an easy read. It's a simple read. It's not easy in the sense that if you do the work, it's going to challenge you, right? There's going to be a lot of reflective questions, some activities. The second book is more comprehensive, and it's going to talk about how you can use your mindset to your advantage. How can you create discipline? We're not born disciplined, right? I get up and I work out every day. I do not want to work out every day. I don't want to work out most days. But what is it that I do in order to get myself to do that? And with my clients that I work with, my fitness and nutrition clients, most of those women have never worked out, or it's been years and years since they've worked out, and they've got jobs and they've got kids. And how are we going to fit in a workout? So a couple of things we do is we try to remove as many barriers as we can. What are the things that are getting in the way, and what can we turn into something that's more automatic, that there's no thinking? One of the biggest things that people do is they try to make changes without any kind of plan. Well, when you don't have a plan, there's a lot of thinking, right? If you don't know before you go to bed what the actual workout is that you're going to do the next morning, you're going to wake up and you're going to waste time like Googling, YouTubing, thinking about it, making it up as you go. And then by the time you figure it out, you're going to do nothing. So if we can take it away, you know exactly what it is you're going to do. Set up the steps. So I've got ladies that they sleep in their workout clothes, or me. The first thing I do as soon as my feet hit the ground, well, I go to the bathroom first, and then I put on what I'm going to be working out in for the day, because the rest of my day can't start until I've worked out, because I already have workout clothes on, right? So we start to do some simple things. We start to change the environment around us a little. When I'm being intentional and focused on getting more water into my body, I sleep with a water bottle on my nightstand. So the first thing I do when I wake up is I see my water bottle, right? Just like if you have to take my father, he has to take certain pills every day. So he has the pills that are set up next to the coffee in the morning, right? So he knows it's that trigger. So it's figuring out what are some of the small things that we can do that are going to take us steps closer, that eliminate some of the barriers. Then we need to make sure that we're just doing the right things. A lot of people spend a lot of time and energy doing things that aren't useful and helpful. So how can we kind of maximize that time? With my fitness and nutrition clients, the biggest thing that we need to do is make sure that we're creating a program that is doable, right? Because if you try to do it and you can't, it's so frustrating, you're going to quit. So it's short enough that they can get it done, enjoyable enough that they'll show up the next day to do it, but it's the right stuff so that they're going to see results. And the same thing with food. We can't just eliminate everything that makes us happy. If you tell me I can't eat pizza, I'm going to hurt you. I'm not going to follow the plan. But if we can figure out what are some of the things that I can do while still enjoying things that I like, it becomes a lot easier, right? And then finding ways to get quick wins. When you see a win right away, when you see some progress and some change, maybe it's not the scale right away, but you see some changes, you can start to build momentum. And so there's a whole lot of little things that we do along the way to get people moving in the right direction.
And one of the things that, with my own doctor, we've been trying to find a nutritionist around here. And believe it or not, it's very difficult to find a nutritionist. So do you take insurance? That's one of the things that everybody asks. Anyhow, we're getting to the end of our program. Is there anything our audience would like to ask Dawn right now? You can type it in the comments. We can bring it up. Dawn can answer them. And before we, we'll do that, but I want to bring up your website so people know how to contact you. And
the easiest way is just to go to epicredemption.com. That's going to take you to a few different options: fitness and nutrition coaching, business coaching for fitness and nutrition professionals. It'll also take you to the site that talks about my books and my speaking.
Yeah, and here it is. And again, it's epicredemption.com. If you type it down, let me see. Here's your email down here.
And some links to connect.
Okay.
And I would love anybody to connect. The most fun place to connect with me is Facebook. Every Monday morning, I do a dance party to kick off the week right in my kitchen. It's ridiculous, but it's been going on for about 3 years now to kick off the week. So Facebook is probably the most fun, and Facebook is where you see the most of my life. If you're looking for that kind of behind the scenes action, what ridiculous things am I up to for the day? That's where to go.
And I also saw that you're on Instagram and you're on LinkedIn, so they can find you all those different ways too. And what other social media platforms? Down on the bottom, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. So those are different places. Right now, I just put the links on how to get to her website. And I had an error occur. It actually showed up on mine, but I've never had that happen before, that an error came on. So I will try posting it again and see what happens. If it'll go like that. There we go. It just it was not having your email there. That's what the problem was. Anyhow, if you look, go to the radio station, WKDW 97.5. Dawn at epicredemption.com is her email, and her website is www.redemption, redemption.com. That way you can get a hold of Dawn, and you can have a one-on-one with her and find out, and go to her website and figure out, what she does, and if it's something that fits in.
Marie's out, so
yeah. I'm here. So,
and you'll see a common theme throughout the website, my business title, the book. The Phoenix is huge. It's that idea of rising up, right? Rising from the ashes. To me, as an athlete, redemption was always that second chance, right? When you've lost a game and you get to come back and redeem yourself the next time. And that's kind of been my mantra for the last really 10 years as I've been kind of awakening, is, rising up, getting what you can from any situation, and really living that second chance, that second part of life, doing things better the next time around.
Winning the mental toughness game in business and life workbook. It's a workbook.
Yep.
So that's awesome. So, Dawn, I would really love to. I appreciate you coming on with us today. I'm glad that your girlfriend.
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Reached out to us.
Yes.
And also to our audience. We are so grateful that you come and listen to us and watch us and are here joining us, taking the time out of your precious day. Really, I do realize how much time it takes to do these things. Right, Dee Dee?
Oh.
And Dee Dee, what is our mantra? What do we always say?
Oh, we're always kind to others. Make that choice.
Right. Yeah, there are many choices in life, and kindness is one. And the world would be a much better place if we were just kind to each other. We don't have to agree with each other, but just be kind. Thank you, everybody. Dawn, again, thank you again for being with us today. Dee Dee, always a pleasure to see you. And this is Marie LaBrosse, one of your hosts. Dee Dee Gozion, and our guest, Dawn Dimicco. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. See you again next week on Kaleidoscope of the Arts from WKDW 97.5 FM Rural Community Radio out of Northport, Florida on the Bishop West Real Estate